Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 1. The activities of Maharaj Priyavrata, text number 30. I won't try to make a meter out of the verse. I'll read simply the synonyms. If somebody here wants to make a meter, they're welcome to do that, if they can do that. Otherwise, I'll simply read the synonyms. Yavat, so long. Avabhasayati, illuminates. Suragirim, the Sumero hill. Anupari Kraman, by circumambulating. Bhagavan, the most powerful. Aditya, sun god. Vasudha Talam, the lower planetary systems. Adhena, by half. Deva, certainly. Pratapi, makes dazzling. Adhena, by half. Avachadyati, covers with darkness. Tada, at that time. He, certainly. Bhagavad Upashana, by worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Upachita, by satisfying him perfectly. Ati Purusha, superhuman. Prabhavaha, influence. Tat, that. Anabhinandam, Anabhinandam, without appreciating. Samajavena, by equally powerful. Rathena, on a chariot. Jyoti Mayena, dazzling. Rajanin, night. Api, also. Dinam, day. Karishyami, I shall make it. Iti, thus. Saptakrit, 7 times. Vastaranim, exactly following the orbit of the sun. Anuparya Kramat, circumambulated. Vitiyaha, second. Eva, like. Patanga, sun. Translation by His Divine Grace. While so excellently ruling the universe, King Priyavrata once became dissatisfied with the circumambulation of the most powerful sun god. Encircling Sumuru hill on his chariot, the sun god illuminates all the surrounding planetary systems. However, when the sun is on the northern side of the hill, the south receives less light. And when the sun is in the south, the north receives less. King Priyavrata disliked this situation and therefore decided to make daylight in that part of the universe where there was night. He followed the orbit of this sun god on a brilliant chariot and thus fulfilled his desire. He could perform such wonderful activities because of the power he had achieved by worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport by His Divine Grace. There is a Bengali saying which describes that someone is so powerful that he can make the night day and the day night. That saying is current because of the prowess of Priyavrata. His activities demonstrate how powerful he became by worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Krishna is known as Yogeshwara, the master of all mystic powers. In Bhagavad Gita 1878, it is said, wherever there is the master of all mystic powers, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, victory, fortune, and all other opulences are present. Devotional service is so powerful. When a devotee achieves what he wants to accomplish, it is not by his own mystic power, but by the grace of the master of mystic power, Lord Krishna. By his grace, a devotee can accomplish wonderful things, unimaginable, even to the most powerful scientist. From the description in this verse, it appears that the sun moves. According to modern astronomers, the sun is fixed in one place, surrounded by the solar system. But here we find that the sun is not stationary. It is the Shastra, you accept the whole thing, or you don't accept anything. You can't pick and choose what you want to accept and what you don't want to accept. It's fundamental. These stories are entertained for the Lord. These are actual events, and the Lord is entertained by this. And by understanding things, by understanding the activities of the devotees of the Lord and those that aren't his friends, but that are serving him nonetheless, by understanding these things in different ways are because they're different moods, different ways of understanding the participants. So our mood changes to understand that, our mindset changes. So by understanding the Lord in these different moods or different ways of understanding, our devotional service becomes very strong. It becomes well-rounded. It has dimension and depth. We begin to understand the Lord in dimension, not just maybe a flat surface, but more and more we understand all those around him and yes, understand completely. But still we understand more and more because we're hearing about the Lord and his activities and the activities of his devotees in different circumstances. So we understand more and more. We see here, we read here, that King Priyavrata, before he was practicing brahmacharya life, but now he is a king. And he is getting experiences that he wouldn't have had as a brahmachari. So, and Narada Muni knew this. We can surmise. He's not saying that, but we can surmise that, of course, Narada Muni knew this. I'm not speculating. There's a difference between speculating and surmising. We're not speculating. We can surmise that Narada Muni knew new opportunities would be there for King Priyavrata, and indeed we do have new opportunities. He does have new opportunities, and thus he's achieving an appreciation, a knowledge of Krishna that he would have had he had stayed just where he was. Of course, we're all different. Spiritual master tells us different things, and so we depend on the spiritual master to tell us what to do. We depend on our authorities in consultation with our authorities. We don't act whimsically and say, well, I'll get more and better experience here if I go there, and I'm just going to leave. Don't do that. That's not, you discuss things with your peers, with authority, discuss things nicely, and make good, informed decisions. So we can be certain that we'll have this opportunity. Here, Priyavrata has an opportunity to do what he wants. He has, you see here, he's doing what he wants. And it may appear silly to some of us, and it may appear very fine, a very fine and wonderful thing to have a chariot to follow the, the King of Heaven and make your own son on the opposite side of where he was at. So things will be more equaled out. King Priyavrata saw that opportunity and he took it because he was very powerful. It's a wonderful thing. But our opinion on that may differ. But the Shastra is to be held as sacrosanct. It's true. And it's not open to argument. This is what happened. We have to understand that. So from my perspective, as a Westerner, I am seeing things much different than you are when I read a story like this. Because you grew up with this. You grew up with pictures all around and understanding from your family and from your friends and from the sadhus that you have contacted and you have read. Hopefully you read when you were younger these stories. But you have a different perspective. These stories have been with you in your culture for thousands of years. You grew up with them. In the West, we gave them up. We gave them up about 2,500 years ago. And we begin to relegate the stories of the demigods and the powerful devotees of the demigods. We begin to relegate that to mythology. Mythology means a false story, a false story. That's really what it means. So when we hear mythology, we can say, oh, they're saying it's a false story. Oh, you Hindus, you have your mythology. No, we don't have any mythology. We have nice stories, but they're true stories, no mythology. But in the West, the activities of the demigods, and they were worshipped in the times of the Greeks, the ancient Greeks, 2,000, 2,500 years ago. But those have been set aside, and in its place, the science has come. So the demigods are no longer appreciated, that they can control the sun and the moon and the wind. They're no longer servants of the Lord, that we're not seeing controlling things, but that the science can explain it all. And the way things have accidentally occurred explains it nicely. So we have a different perspective. When I'm reading this, I'm seeing one thing and it has to be explained in one way, and you're seeing it in a different way. So the significance of an activity also varies from how we see it. Here, Prabhupada in the end talks about the significance of the activity. Maharaj Priyavrata, he just had this idea. Some may say, oh, a whimsical idea, but some may say, no, it's an important idea. That's okay, but understand that he had this idea and he did this thing. That's the important thing. When we approach with the Shastra, with question in our hearts, we do so with humility. That's very important. We have question, we do so with humility. And if something there we don't understand, and there are, Vedas tells many stories, seemingly whimsical stories, with a funny side, with a hilarious side, or allegory. Like King Paranjana, the story is an allegory. It didn't really occur, but he's telling the story in an allegorical manner. So this is a rich literature, and we have to pay attention. We have to read it, and we can understand it in this way, understand it in that way, but always understand it. It's part and parcel of the absolute truth, and it helps us to understand it's faultless, and it helps us to understand Krishna better and better by understanding his devotees. Srila Prabhupada brought under 3 Srimad Bhagavatams, and he gave them out. Fortunately, a friend of mine gave me 3, and I had them sitting there. Never read them, but they were sitting on my mantelpiece, and I would look at them and wonder if I should start reading them. I never did, those 3. And I finally gave them back to him. And so where they are now, I don't know. But initially, we had the Blue Bhagavad Gita, and then then the Krishna book came out, as I recall. I believe that's how things worked. And so the devotees were very much engrossed in reading the Krishna book. So many stories were there. And I can remember being amazed by these stories, not really thinking that from my Western point of view that, well, they're just maybe some mythology is here. Maybe these stories aren't true. Maybe there's this reason for the story, that reason for the story. But some of these stories I found very amazing. One of the stories was when in Balaram, they were in a town, a little town, and the prostitute was there, Kuja. This was a very interesting story for me. Kuja was there. She was a hunchback. And she really was in love with the Lord, very much in love. He was such a beautiful boy, young man, beautiful young man. And Krishna, so she wasn't thinking that he was God. She was just thinking that he was a pretty attractive young man. And so she fell for him very strongly. And Prabhupada describes in, I believe it's Nectar and Devotion, that this is not like the love that Radharani had for the Lord. Because this Puja's love was tinged with some lust. She was lusty after this young man. But nonetheless, she loved him just the same. He loved him. And in his whimsical way, but we got to be careful, not whimsical, but Krishna has his whims, his desires, and he went over and he plucked her up and plucked her straight and made her straight again. And I found that to be a very amusing story, along with Krishna chuckling when Pandraka, he was going into battle, and Pandraka wanted to look like the Lord, and he passed himself off, and he challenged the Lord as being, "You're not Vasudeva, I am Vasudeva." And he had arms somehow attached, extra arms, and he was riding his horse, and the arms were flopping around. And Krishna looked over him, and he chuckled. And I thought this is pretty interesting, that this Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Prabhupada uses is that where there is devotional service, there is this power is there. He could do what he wanted to do. And the thing is, another important point is that Krishna gives that freedom. He gives that freedom. And that freedom is there for each and every one of us. We see that he gives Narada Muni, he gives all these devotees immense amount of freedom. Narada Muni goes here and there, and he's popping up here, popping up there. And the Lord Vishnu and even Lord Brahma, he's also over here. And these devotees are popping up here and there. And they have all this freedom, even to make so-called mistakes. We have to be careful when we call them mistakes. But for instance, I'm thinking of Dhruva. Dhruva, his Rakshasa killed his brother. And so he's king, Dhruva is king. So he had to punish that Rakshasa. And he did that. But he got a little carried away. And then he started killing Rakshasas and he waged war on Rakshasas. And they had to, the Rakshasas had to, his superiors, please, this devotee laying waste here. And so then Dhruva goes back. Of course, you know about Indra. Indra's always, not always, but making trouble here and there. And he's kind of he's on his own. And he's making this trouble according to his desire. The point is, you may think it's a little whimsical. It was a little warmer. And in the summer months, it was a little cooler. So we can understand in that way. But the point is that he has the ability to do what he wants, even if it's not so important to do things like that, or if it can be a little silly, a little whimsical. He has the freedom to do that. And Krishna's not bothering. He's not bothering. He's letting them go. He's letting his 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 subordinates, his servants, take care of the universe. And sometimes he comes to annihilate the miscreants and to please his devotees. But we understand even there, he doesn't really come. He can leave annihilating the miscreants to others. But he really comes for the main reason to please his devotees. And this is why we see that over and over he's appearing to the devotees here, devotees there, and he's coming and appearing to them. But he generally gives us freedom. Gives us freedom. And then that for each one of us, ability that as our devotional service increases, that ability to serve him in a bigger way if we want, or in a small way, is going to be there for us. One of the little things that I'd like to mention is that Prabhupada in the beginning of the verse, I believe, it's in the verse, it's mentioned that the devotee, oh yeah, the second, last paragraph. A Vaishnava never wants to supersede another Vaishnava. So the devotees are not in mundane competition with other devotees. The devotee sees one devotee is making a nice advancement, and we can tell. We can tell. We can tell if we're making advancement, and we can tell if our god brothers and sisters are making advancement. It's not difficult. You can see it. And when we see that, the devotee is happy. Oh, he's making such nice advancement. Isn't that a wonderful thing? And we become happy by seeing that. So Srila Prabhupada wanted to make sure he pointed that out by saying a Vaishnava never wants to supersede another Vaishnava. So here Priyavrata, Maharaj Priyavrata has made this chariot, and he is following around the sun god, not to outdo him. He needed a little help. He could make things a little nicer, to benefit mankind. Prabhupada writes here, to benefit mankind. However, that point has another, that point of not competition, no competition, has another, there's another take, there's another way of understanding it. When one begins to study, sorry, one begins to study the activities of the Lord's intimate devotees in Goloka Vrindavan. And we find that there is some competition amongst the devotees, how they can please Krishna or how they can see him more and this and that. It's a deep subject. And I don't know that much about it, but I know that there is a competition there also. But it is a different kind of competition. And it has to be understood very carefully to understand that competition that is there between the gopis, between the cowherd boys, and how to please the Lord, and then Krishna's mother, and so many things. There is some competition there, but we understand that in a different way. And this here the important point is we understand it according that we don't want to in some mundane competition with our, or some envious competition with our God brothers and sisters. That's the way to understand it here. So let me again read the verse. While so excellently ruling the universe, King Priyavrata once became dissatisfied with the circumambulation of the most powerful sun god. Encircling Sumar Hill on his chariot, the sun god illuminates all the surrounding planetary systems. However, when the sun is on the northern side of the hill, the south receives less light, and when the sun is in the south, the north receives less. King Priyavrata disliked this situation and therefore decided to make daylight in the part of the universe where there was night. He followed the orbit of the sun god on a brilliant chariot and thus fulfilled his desire. He could perform such wonderful activities because of the power he had achieved by worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when I read it, I get a smile because I'm thinking of, oh, he didn't like it, so he's going to change it a little bit. So my perspective, your perspective may be a little different. So there are questions, comments on this?
Nature for the benefit of the mankind. He says that they are demons, but they are challenging the nature. Yes, yes, Maharaj is challenging the nature. He established nature, and he did that. He did that. The Priyut Maharaj is trying to challenge that. So this activity of Priyut Maharaj is not a human activity.
I'm not hearing everything that you've said. I heard the last part. Is not the activity of Maharaj a demon? No, how can it be? He's a pure devotee, and it's his activity. That's the simple answer I have. But I'd have to hear a little bit better the rest of what you said to understand the question a little bit more. But no, it cannot be a demoniac activity. He can maybe playing a role as a demon, but in this case, he's not. In this case, he's playing the role of a pure devotee. So that's there. Go ahead.
His point is that scientists they play with the nature for the benefit of the humankind. Maharaj Priyavrata is also doing the same. He is doing for the benefit of the humankind, playing with the nature.
So
He said they are demonic.
So what is that verse? I wish I could remember these verses. What is day for the conditioned soul? Is night for the spiritualist, and what is day for the spiritualist? Is night for the conditioned soul? I'm paraphrasing. But so the activities that the materialists make look like the activities of the devotee, but they're not. They're different. Even the devotees here, they may be going shopping, driving in the car, doing so many things, sweeping the floor, uh, so many different. They're different, but and it looks like mundane activities, but actually they're transcendental activities. So in the same way, it looks like this is a mundane activity, kind of whimsical as I'm seeing it a little bit. But no, it's transcendental. And there's some deeper transcendental understanding there. I may not understand it, but it is transcendental for certain. And it's different than what the mundane scientists are doing for the demons, yes.
Also, some people manipulate into energy the benefit of people. That's why are pretty much stipulated in humanity. Demons, they actually, they say actually that's the money.
And Prabhupada makes this point